but when we launched into Northeast Nigeria back in 2018, that region had been plagued by Boko Haram terror groups and their decimation on that part of Nigeria. And 2014 was the abduction of the Chibok girls and the Bring Back the Girls campaign that swept globally and then went away really quickly, unfortunately. And then in 2016, the Boko Haram group splintered and ISWAP was formed out of that. And as much as we'd like to think that 10 years later things are different, it's not. And in many respects, even last year, 1 year ago in September of 24, there was one of the biggest attacks by ISWAP on the population in Northeast Nigeria. 170 people were killed in one night of terror. And then I don't think I've seen yet the numbers of people that were abducted from that, which then informs why there's 3 million internally displaced in Nigeria alone. Because there's not a lot of high volume of attacks happening, but when they do happen, they naturally freak out the population. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know enough. I talk to our leaders there on a regular basis, but certainly there's some political pieces that play a part in this whole thing too. And then tied to that all is Northeast Nigeria is primarily 98% Muslim. And you have a lot of focus of these attacks on Christian villages and communities and families and things like that. And so, again, we've used the term complex and complicated a lot, but the reality that it's there. And so I see what's happening in that region, not just Nigeria, but across that part of Africa. And I'm just aware of the fact that we need to be ready for a greater response because needs will grow, I think. Certainly there's internally displaced that we serve, and that's the primary audience that our programs serve in Northeast Nigeria. And then the government, just like in Uganda, they want to, disband those IDP settlements and those IDP camps because it does look bad for them if they have millions of their own people forcibly displaced because of these kinds of conflicts. And so you're pushing people back to their communities where they came from. And, where we saw that attack last year, it set people up to be targets right away. And so it's not as high profile as maybe it needs to be, but it is something we're going to have to pay attention to. And for me, that's one thing we've got to keep an eye on. The vast majority of the world has not been aware of or has forgotten because of the next quick, headline or crisis happening in the world. And we believe that they have the potential to be leaders in the future and that can change their communities and their countries in the years to come. And yeah, I think I could go on and on, but
I mean, when you look at specifically Northeast Nigeria there, you brought up that it's 98% Muslim. I imagine the lion's share of that remaining 2% is probably Christian.
Yeah.
And so they're the ethnic minority in that area. Yep. Is that something that, do you tend to, the affected people there, because they probably tend to be Christian vice Muslim? Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
No, that's what's unique about Northeast Nigeria. Although a lot of the conflict has been perpetrated by Muslim groups, it's still the Muslims that are predominantly the ones that are displaced.
Interesting.
So that's, that 98% is what the communities are, but that's also what our numbers look like in our programs.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And yeah, I imagine that's a little bit, again, being faith-based and using the Bible as sort of some of your primary material here, doing that. Is it, I don't know, is it any help at all that, they're both sort of Abrahamic religions. They both worship the same God, but different prophets. Muslims believe in Muhammad. We believe in Jesus Christ.
Right.
Is that something that you use at all? I just wonder what the actual on the ground tactic here is to still maybe try to find that common ground. Is the common ground that there's...
Yeah, the common ground is we've all been affected by conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim, I'm here in this place and we're struggling together to try to survive. So there is I think politics can create wars really quick, and then religions do a good job of that as well. But when on the ground, when I'm visiting in Northeast Nigeria, we open our programs in prayer, but they have someone of the Muslim faith open and then someone from the Christian faith also open, and then, vice versa at the end. So we want to respect one another, even though we have differing views. And of course, these communities are predominantly illiterate, predominantly religiously illiterate too. So they're just hearing the sound bites that are around them. And so it's a lot of cultural religion, both on the Muslim and Christian side. And so our team is really, through their programming and individual engagements with kids, what does it actually mean for you as a Muslim to acknowledge Jesus as a good prophet, but how does that differ from how we see him? Mm-hmm. And so we've got to be very careful that we're not going to proselytize and things like that, because we can create real division real quick. Yeah. And it is a dangerous place to be a Christian. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. And our staff are all Christians, and we have Christian beneficiaries that are living in and amongst predominantly Muslim beneficiaries in communities. And so, we've had to be, as a faith-based organization, one of the things that our board has decided is we have, for the safety of those staff and beneficiaries in Northeast Nigeria, we've got to be careful on what we put out on our website and things like that, because it's not that we're downplaying our beliefs and our faith, but it's saying we care and love for these people more than being right on a public-facing website. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, look, as a leader, you have to look at proper risk mitigation practices. Yeah. The mission here, as you stated, is to give a voice to these people, to these women and children.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to accomplish your mission if you are just constantly fearing for your life and have to move your operation to maybe a less effective area because you couldn't do proper risk mitigation. Yeah. I like to, this is just getting into my own sort of philosophy here around religion and Christianity, but I like to think that God has common sense and, would understand that ChildVoice doesn't maybe advertise so loudly on their website that they're faith-based and a Christian-driven organization.
Yeah, I don't think God's holding that against us at all. There may be some other Christians out there that are, but whatever. You got to make, as you said, we've got to mitigate risk, and we're trying to serve as many kids as possible in some really hard places, and you have to make wise decisions to that end, and doesn't always agree with everybody, but that's all right.
There are the realities on the ground.
Sure.
There just are, and you're doing important work, and you need to enable yourself to continue doing that important work.
Absolutely.